All right, I think we are live. Welcome, Sham. Great to have you here for our second Diac Day session. We are doing these Diac Day sessions as a way of raising awareness about Diac and the philosophy and the movement. For everyone who's tuning in and new to the topic, Diac represents defensive acceleration, which is a philosophy that was originally coined by Vitalik in his 2023 essay, My Techno-Optimism. Highly recommend checking it out. Basically, the principles of it are that we should build and accelerate technology, but do so in a defensive, democratic, decentralized, and differential manner. And with the DIAC a day, every day we're talking to a new builder in the DIAC space, someone doing something that really aligns with this philosophy and mission. And today we have Sham from Provably. So welcome, Sham. Great to have you here. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me here, Isla. I'm doing great and really looking forward to this chat.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, I've heard about Provably before, and you know I'm a fan. But maybe you can tell me a little bit about what you're doing, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah. Provably is we're building verifiable databases. We are nearly 2 years old now. Verifiable databases. We basically in the world of crypto, we are on DLTs. We are creating verifiable data. So there's a lot of transactions in the ledgers, and as we create more and more of these transactions, we want to ask questions of that data. And when we ask questions of that data, we want to prove that our answers are correct and complete. So if you're a project on chain, you want to prove how much you made last month. Well, you can run that query. You just do that using simple SQL queries, which like most developers know. And when you get that answer back, that let's say you made $200,000 USDC or something, you can prove that that answer is correct. It comes from the chain, and then the maths behind it to get to 200,000 is correct. But the other thing is that you can also use it on all the data that lives off chain. So like imagine all the big data, which will mostly live off chain as well, some of it because it's not fit for a blockchain. You can make that data verifiable as well. You can prove its integrity and run verifiable queries on that. So we believe that we're going to a world where all the data will become verifiable, and you can inspect its properties and really trust what you get and verify what you get.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I'm a huge fan of this concept personally. It's for me when you explained it to me in I think it was January, really clicked with me. I think like just the truth and truthfulness is such an important part of the world and the ability to rely on information and data and especially with AI at the moment, it feels like that becomes even more critical and rare. I'd love maybe could you explain like a couple of basic use cases that you're finding interesting or seeing in the wild?
Yeah, maybe there's a couple. So the first one is that chains want to natively support verifiable queries on their data. They're producing a lot of data, especially now, the hot topic of the moment. Almost every chain is working on privacy. As the mainstream adoption happens and people's financial lives are, migrating to being completely on chain, they want to keep how they spend their money, etc., private. But yet, if they keep their data private and they have verifiable data, they should still be able to use it. So what we're working on with a number of chains is users can basically own their financial data in their wallets, and then they can prove facts about their financial data to they can prove it to smart contracts, they can prove it to counterparties, anyone that they want. So the wallet becomes this private wallet becomes this amazing SDK with a set of APIs and so on, depending on whether it's on device or off device. You can prove and own your data and prove things about your data. The other place where we're seeing a lot of interest is in AI, and we've actually just built our Provably MCP as well. And here, we're waiting for the future a little bit, and we've been working on it since last year. We had this idea that LLMs are eventually going to start talking to each other. Agents are going to start talking to each other. Today, it's we as users talk to agents, but pretty much we're going to get to a phase where everything is agentic. And the unique thing about AI, as you already alluded to in your question, is that they are non-deterministic in the sense that if you ask them a question, they can get confused and they can give different answers, and therefore it's hard to know which answer to really trust. So here, the role that we're playing is that when AI gives you an answer on data, it can prove, and what verifiable proofs allows it to do is that it can prove the authenticity of that data and correctness and completeness. So if you asked an AI a question, maybe it's on private data or even on your own data, and you're going to make a big decision, then it can prove the integrity of that data answer. So I think this is a space where AI responses can be, really verifiable. And now I think the main place that we're going to start seeing it is around agentic payments, agentic reputation, identity, etc. And the future is fast arriving, and we're already building for that.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. To me, intuitively seems incredibly important. Um, Curious how familiar you are with DIAC and how you think that this fits into the DIAC philosophy.
I'm familiar with Diaka. I've been to Zazalu events and also read the post that Vitalik posted a couple of years ago and this year's version, as well as hearing him speak about it. I think where we fit in is that we're in this grand migration from, every time you receive data today in today's world, it comes from a trusted source, right? And
Mm,
even if you take blockchains, um, on our devices, when you open your wallet, so a lot of wallets, you trust that the wallet is fetching you the right data from the
mm,
chain and delivering that to you. Even that most basic thing, right? What we're doing is allowing integrity in every data interaction, whether it's from the chain. So when it comes to your device, your app, whether it's a wallet, whatever, will tell you that this data is correct and complete. And when you interact with all the other data off chain, as well, you want integrity in that. And uh, the reason, it really fits with DIAC is that we're seeing this acceleration of, let's say, autonomous systems.
mm,
And when so in a trusted world, you at least know who to put the finger on and blame and go and talk to and correct the problem. In a world of like autonomous systems, it's very hard to put your finger on that or verify whether a machine or an autonomous system is actually that is correct. And proofs and verifiability allows you
mm.
to understand that if a system's telling you something, a remote autonomous system, then you can verify and trust it. So yeah, I think we totally are part of what going in the direction and fit into the direction of DIAC. And yeah, we'd like to see a world where every piece of data that you receive has a tiny ZK proof, and
Mm.
stress about whether I trust it. You just trust it. You just verify it, trust it, and it just makes you feel so much more comfortable with whatever you need to do.
Yeah, I love that vision. One of the examples that comes up for me is just in interactions with like ChatGPT or similar LLMs. You're having a conversation and it will come up with like quotes or sources from
Right.
specific people. And like, I don't know, a good 90 to 95% of the time, those quotes are completely inaccurate, like wildly inaccurate. And being able to say, okay, like there's a proof on this. This is actually an accurate quote or an accurate source of him. Super, super important. And I can see so many use cases for this. The kind of keywords that come to mind for me are like info defense and mind defense. So info defense is like what is the ecosystem of information that we're relying upon, and then like these chat LLMs are basing their information on, and then mind defense in the sense of like how are people's minds and opinions being shaped by the information that they're receiving, and if that ecosystem of information isn't actually verifiable or accurate, like what kind of future are we building and how are we shaping people's opinions? And that to me is very scary if we accelerate the wrong thing. So I'm very excited about what you're doing. Yeah, maybe can you tell me a little bit about how you're building? Are you building open source, closed source? How are you thinking about that side of things?
So because it's core cryptography, we're building zero knowledge for big data, etc. It has to become open source, especially the verify and certain parts of the stack. And right now we are closed source, and we are also a pre-seed team, and we need to get to a level where when we do open source, I think, which is literally around the corner, we will be able to cope with all the goodness and all the other stuff that comes with being open source. So we about doing it in a progressive way where the core cryptography primitives have to be open source, and then just progressively go from there. And right now we haven't had to do it because the early adopters really care about solving a problem, and they're leaning on us to push the performance to do certain things, and we are just solving their problem. And we're also able to learn what this product can do. And I think it is reaching a level of maturity where we can share this baby with share it with all the others that care about verifiable databases, and collaborate with them. And just to, maybe example of why we're a little bit apprehensive. Another entity working on verifiable databases, in about 8 months after going open source, they had like 500,000 downloads of their prover, and a really large community, and like 5,000 stars on GitHub. So you need to have a team to deal with all the attention that comes your way. And we're still a small team, so we're not there yet.
Yeah. No, I can totally relate to that. Like, building good things requires a lot of effort and resources, and especially when you have a large community, the amount of effort it requires to actually be transparent is surprisingly high. So I totally resonate. I'd be curious how you think when you go about building and funding yourselves, like how are you funding yourselves? How do you think about that? Have you had challenges in funding yourselves, or would you see challenges in the open source space? Just really curious on your thoughts there.
Yeah, I think so. We are funding ourselves through venture funding, and then this year increasingly through client funding as well, or just delivering verifiable databases to people that want it, and they're able to pay, and then this is getting almost par with each other, which is great, So in terms of like telling the story of why verifiable databases, it's interesting. It's like crypto is, there was like a world before. If you take computing, there was a world before databases, let's say in the mid 1970s, and then the first 50 years of computing was just computing, So it's like you had the equivalent of smart contracts where you could make a transaction and write something in a ledger, but the need to take all the data and then ask questions about it, that came, in traditional computing, maybe in the mid 70s. That's where we are right now. So it has been challenging to explain to people why you would need a verifiable database. And we're 2 years in. I think I've spoken to like 200 VCs, and yeah, and people in crypto are, why do I need to ask questions about a data, about what's in a blockchain? And but now suddenly we've gone through this moment where there's like just verifiable databases, use cases everywhere, from private blockchain wallets, to custodians, every piece of infrastructure wants to prove that the data that it's computing on to make decisions, to even sign something, is based on verifiable data. So I think we're turning the corner, and we're also learning our market, and who's our ideal customer who will recognize this far quicker, and we should spend time with them. And it's just part of the journey.
Okay. Would I be correct to understand that model that you're aiming for is like open core?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what we have to do. Yeah.
Cool. And when you approach investors, what has been your impression of that model? Is there an openness to it, or are you finding that there's a challenge with the open source side of things?
I think in ZK there is one or two patterns of how ZK monetizes. It's
Yeah.
usually, and the one that is topical right now is proven networks. And, Ethereum's going through the
Yeah.
journey of was real-time proving. So this is the model that people really understand. So the first
Okay.
question is, you got a ZK prover with a verifier. Are
Yeah.
you going to have a network, and will you have a token,
Yeah.
and so on? ZK is applied right now to scale blockchains, and it's applied in
Yeah.
a very specific way. In our case, for example, we realized that our prover could be efficient to run on someone's device, which means
Mm.
it's like client-side proving. So what is the
Yeah.
business model of client-side proving? Right? There is no prover network necessarily there. So these are the things that we're kind of figuring out, and thankfully, we have found early clients are willing to pay for tech. So they're paying for a mix of licenses and consulting, and
Mhm.
that's to show like proof that people are willing to pay for tech. And then progressively, we will have to think about the proven network, and there will be a token, and so on and go.
Mm.
So to answer your question, it's figuring out how to monetize ZK. That's the
Yeah.
beyond the usual routes, and that's what we've been on, and I think we're understanding better what our product can do in terms of software licensing, proven network, and so on.
Okay. Gotcha. No, that's super helpful. If you had a magic wand to improve the builder experience, what would you change?
I the thing I want to help everyone remind everyone of is um, we are I just wish that everyone would understand very quickly that all this verifiable data that we are creating, it has a life after just a transaction. Once, let's say you received your wages
Mm.
on chain, on stable coins, whatever, you will use it to do something else afterwards. And that click hasn't quite happened yet across the board. And
Mm.
that's when people start to realize, the builders will start to realize, actually, there was this whole thing about we should own our data. Well, guess what? When
Mm.
you're on a private private chain, or a privacy centric chain, the first data that people will own is their financial data. And then I wish there was a realization that that data is what could drive certain things that you do in DeFi. For example, you could prove the collateral that you have,
Mm.
ending that you go through, or how much your business earns, and
Yeah,
all the
prove income streams and things. Yeah.
exactly that all becomes programmable, and you can use it. Today, that realization isn't there because everything's public.
Mm.
It's like I can just go to Dune, or I can go to an indexer, I can look inside a wallet and find it. But
Mm.
I think a year from now, where and we're seeing what Zcash is going through right now, like to the moon, and everyone's working in privacy,
Yeah.
the will change to, okay, everybody's financial transactions are somewhere private, and now how do I do composability, right? And that's when verifiable databases can come in to
Mm.
take private and really allow people to compose and transition safely, and so on.
I love that. Yeah, that's a really helpful perspective to think about. Good thought. Um, yeah, what else? I guess what do you wish existed for builders in the funding ecosystem that doesn't exist yet, and what would you want to see going forward? Like you've obviously been through a journey as a founder, and we're with Switzerland and the work that we're doing, trying to build a path that accelerates open source and DAC tech, and we're very curious to understand from the builders we speak to, like what is it that we can do or we can help enable that will make that easier.
I th in So there is like let's say, if you spend time figuring out how to let's say fundraise, there's like lots of you make one deck, and you can raise from you, or you can access like 300 different people, 300, 400 different VCs, and you will get your
Mm.
way on the let's say within the community. The models are it's a lot of effort to engage different grant programs, or the behaviors and the processes between the different communities are quite different as well. And then the
Mm.
other, more recent, is I've been thinking about, crypto is permissionless and composable on the top, if you like, right? So if you have a chain, you can build on top of. But
Yeah.
something like ours, where we actually would love to be directly part of the protocol, it's very, very difficult to do unless the protocol lets you in, within the info. I'll give you an example. We're talking so on chain, when you write a smart contract, there's a gas fee you pay when the smart contract executes.
Yeah.
But if you want to have your prover to be directly in the protocol, so it can also receive some of that gas fee and it can split some of that gas fee, that's not possible unless the chain lets you in. So it's almost like I wish there was a app store type model. That's bad centralized analogy, but there was a model. Our infrastructure could be part of the protocol, and in a native way, without having to a lot of people. But if we could get there, and from there, a user would pay one fee, but where our infrastructure was used, we would get a split of that gas fee, for example. Today, that's not possible. You'd have to have separate smart contracts, and you'd have to go through like a totally different process. But yeah, so it'll be amazing to be part of protocol infrastructure more efficiently, and to add value and then split the fees that come from that.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me as a non-technical person, but someone I've been involved in a couple of larger projects, and just thinking about that, sharing the revenues from the network makes a lot of sense. So interesting perspective. Thank you for sharing. I think that's it for my questions. Maybe as a little capping off, do you have any questions for me or us?
What?
Sorry,
I hadn't heard that. So when you do something in Switzerland in person in Switzerland next? We haven't met in a while, so yeah.
Yes, good question. We are in pretty serious talks for a longer residency again next May, or in April, May. But it's not 100% sure that we will go that route. We're still figuring it out. The reason it's not 100% sure is that our main focus is on the permanent hub and figuring out a permanent residency. And so the main kind of critical path that we're focused on is getting a permanent physical village set up in Switzerland, probably mid to end next year. And we're just, with limited resources and capacity, figuring out is a pop-up village the most important thing, or do we have capacity for that? And if so, yes, we'll absolutely do it. And we've got some exciting possibilities again in Lux. But if not, then we'll just focus on the permanent village, and there's really exciting things happening there as well that hopefully we can share very soon.
Awesome. Looking forward to whichever one pans out.
Yeah. And looking forward to hopefully have you and probably involved, and maybe as an anchored tenant or resident there, since you're Swiss based as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for joining us for DIAC A Day, Sham. It was super nice talking to you, and hopefully we will catch up again for coffee very soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. It was great to chat.
Yeah, likewise. Ciao. Have
Ciao.
a good one.
Ciao. Bye.